皆様ごきげんよう、高松菜奈です。今日私はですね、イギリスにありますレディング大学にやってまいりました。これからイギリスのシティズンシップ教育、政治の授業をですね、長らく研究されてきましたデイビッド・カーさんに取材しに参りたいと思います。What are the challenges of citizenship in the UK?
And unfortunately, since the Conservative government came to power in 2010, and it's less inclusive and broad compared to the way the citizenship was. Japan always had a strong interest in citizenship education. There used to be lots of delegations coming from the ministry, from NGOs, from other organisations. Greta Thunberg and others taught for that generation where it's all blah, blah, blah from the politicians.
What are the characteristics of citizenship education in the UK?
The characteristic of citizenship education in the UK. The thing about the UK is it's made up of 4 different countries. People may have mentioned this already. So you've got England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Because one of the things in the UK now, it's something called devolution. So Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales have got more control over their education systems than they once had, so they can have their own policies for citizenship education. So what you have in England, citizenship education is part of the national curriculum. So all 11 to 16-year-olds need to be taught about citizenship. I think one characteristic is that it's left up to teachers to decide what they want to teach in citizenship. There's a curriculum, but it's left open to them to deal with topical issues and make the curriculum relevant to the lives of young people. And I think that's really important now in all countries, not just in the UK, but also in Japan, that citizenship fits the challenges that young people face in their lives in the 21st century.
What are the challenges of citizenship in the UK?
The challenges, well, one of the main challenges is that when citizenship came into the curriculum, it had the support of all the political parties. So it was a political issue, but not a party political issue. And unfortunately, since the Conservative government came to power in 2010, they have a certain view of citizenship, which is much more around rights and about nationalism. And it's less inclusive and broad compared to the way the citizenship was. So one of the big challenges is a government view of citizenship, which is quite narrow compared to what it used to be. And that also then means that there isn't a lot of government support for citizenship. So other subjects and other parts of the curriculum get more money and more resources. And one of the big challenges is we're not training enough teachers to be citizenship teachers compared to other subjects, because the curriculum is very crowded. There's lots of other subjects, and it's a challenge to get schools to prioritize citizenship over other subjects.
I heard that compulsory citizenship education classes in the UK are decreasing. How has this changed? And why has citizenship education in the UK decreased? What are the differences in citizenship education in the UK now compared to 20 years ago?
20 years ago, well, I mean, there's big changes. 20 years ago, citizenship first came into the national curriculum in 2002. So that was a very positive development, that all young people aged 11 to 16 would be taught citizenship. It was left up to schools to decide how they would actually teach it, which in hindsight might have been a mistake. Maybe we should have been more directive about the way that schools should organise citizenship by having citizenship as a subject with proper subject teachers and curriculum time. What's happened, as I mentioned earlier, is that the Conservative government came to power in 2010, and they have a different model for how schools work. So they've introduced a model where many schools now report directly to the government rather than their local authorities. They're often called academies. They have special status at schools, which mean that they don't have to follow the national curriculum. So although citizenship was statutory as a part of the national curriculum and all schools had to follow it, those schools who've become academies don't have to follow the national curriculum. So that's the reason why in some areas citizenship isn't taught as much as it was, because these academy schools have decided not to teach as much citizenship. But it's a mixed picture, because we also find in other schools that more citizenship is being taught because it's become established as a subject. You've got subject teachers, you've got exams, pupils like it, parents support it. So it's not an even picture across England. There's been decreases in some places, but increases in others. All right. Well, I mean, the good news about lobbying for citizenship is that the organisations that support citizenship are very strong. So organisations like Young Citizens, the Association for Citizenship Teaching, there's a professional association that supports citizenship teachers now. I'm on the council and I edit their journal. They're called ACT, and they've just won a large amount of money to support the building of a real strong network of citizenship teachers. So they are lobbying the Department for Education and other government departments, along with other citizenship organisations, to get more support for citizenship, because there are massive challenges in society which young people need to be educated about, not just voting, but global climate change, those kind of things. So there's a really growing campaign now to make citizenship a stronger part of the school curriculum and to get more money and resources for it. So I would hope that that would see citizenship rise as a subject in the next 5 to 10 years with that kind of lobbying support behind it. And there was a recent House of Lords committee report which suggested that there needed to be stronger citizenship and civic education. And that report's gone to ministers and to the Department of Education. So there's been a really strong push at the moment to strengthen citizenship education from lots of different angles.
What do you consider to be the goals of citizenship education? For example, citizens have a sense of ownership over society.
I think the most important thing is to educate young people about society and how society works. So where power lies and how they can influence power, how they can have a voice and have a say. And that needs to start in their schools, so they can have a voice in their schools and their school community. And it's really important that they have opportunities to participate. And all the research suggests that you have horizontal participation where everyone participates in cultural events and sports and things, which is good. But they also need to get some experience of vertical participation. That's where they engage with structures of power. So they engage with their school leaders, their politicians, those who are making decisions about things. So they have an opportunity to put the voice of young people. And it's really important that they have those opportunities and they have some success in those opportunities, because that's the way we're going to build societies of active, informed and responsible citizens. And that's what we all want, to protect our society and our communities. Because I think the big challenge at the moment is, whereas there was a lot of support for democracy 20 years ago, there weren't so many challenges to it. And now we need to educate our young people not just to support democracy, but to protect it from the challenges we see from strong leaders, from things like conspiracy theories, from extremism, from terrorism. It's a very volatile world at the moment. And I think what we need to do is to educate our young people to tackle that world with confidence, to have confidence that working with others.
What kind of lessons are essential in citizenship education?
The first thing to say is there needs to be lessons in citizenship education. So all pupils should get citizenship lessons, because all the research suggests that citizenship works best when pupils get regular lessons taught by trained teachers and are also assessed on what they actually learn. And it's helpful if the citizenship lessons cover knowledge, so they learn about democratic institutions, the law, the economy and how things work. But there also needs to be an active element where they can put that learning into practice. They can try and bring about some change in the school. They can call in local politicians and people who make decisions and question them and ask them about the views of young people and how those are actually represented. So you need to have that mixture of knowing and doing, cognitive, the kind of thinking bit, but the effective, the doing bit.
What is British citizenship education's focus on empowering people with the ability to change society and experience success? In Japan, few young people think they can change society.
And I think schools play a crucial role in doing that because young people spend so much time in school. They need to have an opportunity to know that they have a voice in their community, in their school community. So they need to have success about bringing change in their school and to understand how that process takes place, working with other pupils. And then from that success, from those small steps, you get them to build bigger steps in their communities and in society. But it needs to be real change, there's an awful lot of I would say there's an awful lot of consultation going on with young people. So adults asking them what they think, but then that's not turning into action. And young people are getting very cynical and annoyed about being consulted. I would say climate change is a massive example of that. Greta Thunberg and others talk for that generation where it's all blah, blah, blah from the politicians who are talking to young people but not really listening to them.
What skills are essential for teachers?
The most important thing they need to be able to do is to help young people to discuss and debate. So rather than just filling them up with information, they need to encourage more active learning. So by having discussions with them, by looking at current topics, by taking them on visits, by helping them to reflect on what they've actually learnt, and giving opportunities to put that learning into practice. So they need to model the citizenship learning themselves as teachers and not just do it in the classroom and then when they're outside the classroom do non-citizenship things. They need to be good role models for what's actually going on. So it's quite a skilled thing to be a citizenship teacher, which is why they need proper training so that they continue to improve as citizenship teachers as they go along.
In Japan, my company is now the only organization that does citizenship education on a wide level. What do you think our organizations should be doing?
Japan always had a strong interest in citizenship education. There used to be lots of delegations coming from the ministry, from NGOs, from other organizations, and therefore it's disappointing to hear that citizenship isn't so strong in Japan, but it's great to hear that your organization is still carrying the flag for citizenship education. That's really important. And therefore, I think we need to continue to build these international networks of organizations to support each other.
What should be tackled in Japan if the UK is taken as a model?
So I think a few things. I think, first of all, citizenship education works best when it's got political support. So it needs to have the support of all political parties, not just the ruling party. Politicians need to understand the importance of citizenship education. I mean, surely they want young people to vote for them and to understand that supports democracy. So you need to really build that support of all political parties, even if they don't agree necessarily on what citizenship education is. Secondly, it's really important that it's built into the national curriculum, because if things get built into national curricula, they get support, they get funding, they get training for teachers, they get qualifications, they get assessment. And then I think you also need to educate the public about the importance of citizenship education, so parents, companies and others, so that they offer the support for it as well. And finally, I think you need to ensure that young people understand why they're learning citizenship education, so that the citizenship education that they're learning isn't boring. It's not just learning from a book. It actually is relevant to their lives, that they feel like they're learning something which can really contribute to the life they have now and the kind of society they actually want to build. And that's where it gets really exciting if you get that collaboration. So you get the political support, you get the educational support, you get the public support, but you also get the support of young people. And you need all those elements there. And in many countries, they're not always there at the same time. You have to need to keep working them. Because there are a number of events that happened in British society at the time that made politicians think that they needed to look at citizenship education to help solve those. So one of the big events was, it's called a democratic deficit. You may well have it in Japan, that it looked like lots of young people had no interest in politics anymore, and they weren't turning out to vote. So maybe it's the same in Japan. It's older people, the older generation who still vote. The younger people have got out of the habit of voting. So it was felt that they needed to understand how the political system worked and the importance of their vote. So that was one thing. There was growing concern about the behaviour of young people in schools and in society. There were a couple of tragic events. A young boy was killed by two school-age primary school pupils, taken from a shopping centre and killed on a railway line. There was also the terrible murder of a black teenager in London called Stephen Lawrence, who was stabbed to death in a bus stop by some white youths. And this was all a sign that young people needed to be taught about rights and responsibilities and behaviour and what their responsibilities were in the society, to be active and responsible citizens. So those different elements came together, more support from the Conservatives for rights and behaviour, more support from Labour for democratic deficit and understanding about the political system, and therefore those things came together so that all the parties signed up in support of citizenship education, even though it might have meant different things to the different parties. And therefore, perhaps in Japan, you need to find out what the different parties think about citizenship education and what the issues are for them. There was the new Labour government when it came in 1998. It set up a citizenship advisory group with representatives from all the parties on there, chaired by the Speaker of the House of Commons to show it had all party support. And then it made recommendations as to why citizenship education should be there and what its aims should be in schools and society. And all the parties supported that, and then that led to it going into the curriculum. And I think there might be time now for a new commission on citizenship. You might think about that in Japan. Can you get public bodies together to decide what citizenship education should be now to meet the challenges of the modern UK, the modern Japan, so that it's got politicians on there, the public, journalists, educationalists, to decide what citizenship should be in the 21st century, because it's different than what it was 20 years ago. There are new challenges like digital, like media, like conspiracy theories, like climate, that need new solutions.
Give a message to the youth of Japan.
The youth of Japan. Well, all I can say is, as with all young generations in many countries, good luck, because you face many challenges. But I know from working with young people in the UK that they are incredibly skilled and dedicated and have many values and qualities which previous generations didn't have. I think they've got great technological powers. I think their ability to understand change and adapt with it, their use of social media, the way they really think through issues gives me a lot of hope that we're heading for a much better place in terms of our society by young people working together to solve the challenges that we actually face, which can only be solved at a global level. And I have confidence that what I see in the climate change movement and elsewhere, that young people will rise to the challenge.
最後までご覧いただきありがとうございました。ぜひチャンネル登録、高評価お願いいたします。それではまた、ごきげんよう。